December 1916. A lavish palace in St. Petersburg stood silent beneath the winter night. Inside, a group of powerful aristocrats waited nervously. They believed they were about to save the Russian Empire. Their target was a man many considered the most dangerous figure in the country. Poison was served. Then came the gunshots. Yet according to legend, he refused to die. Who was this man? And why does his death remain one of history's greatest mysteries?
His name was Grigori Rasputin. To some, he was a holy man blessed with divine powers. To others, he was a manipulative fraud who had hypnotized an entire royal family. Newspapers called him a mad monk. His enemies called him a monster. But regardless of what people believed, one thing was certain. Few individuals have left behind a legend as strange and controversial as Rasputin.
Welcome to Storyverse, where history's greatest mysteries, forgotten stories, and unbelievable truths come to life. Today, we follow the extraordinary journey of a poor Siberian peasant who rose from obscurity to become one of the most influential men in Imperial Russia. A man surrounded by scandal, power, fear, and mystery. This is the story of Grigori Rasputin. January 1869. Deep within the frozen wilderness of Siberia, in the small village of Pokrovsky, a child was born into a humble peasant family. Life here was harsh. Winters were brutal, opportunities were rare, and survival was never guaranteed. Nothing about this remote village suggested it would one day produce a man whose name would echo throughout the world. As a boy, Rasputin received little formal education. He could barely read and write. Yet villagers often noticed something unusual about him. He possessed an intense stare that made people uncomfortable. Some believed he had a gift for understanding others. Whether these stories were true or merely legends created later, they became an important part of the mystery surrounding him.
In his youth, Rasputin was far from a saint. Accounts describe him as rebellious, unpredictable, and prone to drinking. Yet something changed. In his late 20s, he experienced a profound spiritual awakening. Leaving behind much of his former life, he began traveling across Russia as a wandering religious pilgrim, searching for answers about faith, destiny, and God. As Rasputin journeyed from village to village, stories about him began to spread. Some claimed he could heal the sick. Others believed he possessed supernatural insight. Wherever he went, followers seemed to gather around him. His reputation grew larger with every passing year, eventually reaching people far beyond the frozen fields of Siberia.
Then came the opportunity that would change everything. In the early 1900s, Rasputin arrived in St. Petersburg, the glittering capital of the Russian Empire. Here, among nobles, politicians, and clergy, rumors of the mysterious Siberian holy man spread quickly. Before long, those rumors reached the ears of the most powerful family in Russia, the Romanovs.
At the heart of the Romanov dynasty stood a secret that threatened the future of the empire. Tsar Nicholas II and Empress Alexandra had a son, Alexei, the heir to the Russian throne. But Alexei suffered from hemophilia, a disease that prevented his blood from clotting properly. A simple injury could become life-threatening. The royal family lived in constant fear, desperately searching for anyone who could help their son. Then, Rasputin entered their lives. During one of Alexei's severe health crises, the mysterious Siberian appeared to calm the boy and his mother. Remarkably, Alexei's condition seemed to improve. Whether it was coincidence, psychology, or something else entirely remains debated even today.
But for Empress Alexandra, the conclusion was clear. Rasputin had succeeded where doctors had failed.
From that moment, Rasputin became far more than a wandering holy man. He gained access to the royal palace itself. He spoke directly with the imperial family. His advice was sought on matters both personal and political. To supporters, he was a trusted spiritual guide. To critics, he was an outsider who had somehow gained influence over the most powerful family in Russia. As Rasputin's reputation grew, so did the rumors. Newspapers published shocking stories about his behavior. Aristocrats whispered about secret meetings and scandals. Religious leaders questioned his beliefs. Every new rumor seemed more outrageous than the last. Yet, despite the controversy, the royal family continued to trust him.
The more influence Rasputin appeared to gain, the more enemies he created. Members of the nobility viewed him as a dangerous embarrassment. Government officials feared his growing access to power. Many believed that his presence was damaging the reputation of the monarchy itself. By the early 1910s, hatred toward Rasputin was spreading throughout Russian society.
Meanwhile, Russia was entering a period of growing instability. Economic hardship, political unrest, and public dissatisfaction were increasing across the empire. Beneath the glittering surface of the Romanov court, cracks were beginning to appear. Few people realized just how close Russia was to a historic catastrophe.
Then came World War I. Millions of Russian soldiers were sent into battle. Casualties mounted. Supplies became scarce. Public anger intensified. As the crisis deepened, many people searched for someone to blame. Increasingly, their attention turned toward Rasputin, the mysterious figure who seemed to hold extraordinary influence over the imperial family.
To his enemies, Rasputin was no longer merely an eccentric mystic. He had become a threat to the survival of the empire itself. Some accused him of manipulating the empress. Others believed he was secretly controlling government decisions. Whether these accusations were true mattered less than the fact that many powerful people believed them.
As fear and resentment grew, whispers of assassination began to circulate among Russia's elite. Quiet conversations took place behind closed doors. Influential men started discussing a drastic solution. They convinced themselves that removing Rasputin might save the monarchy from collapse.
One of those men was Prince Felix Yusupov, a wealthy aristocrat from one of Russia's most powerful families. Together with a group of conspirators, he began planning what would become one of history's most famous murder plots. Their target was not a king, not a general, but a peasant mystic from Siberia.
The plan seemed simple. Rasputin would be invited to Yusupov's palace under the pretense of a friendly meeting. There, he would be quietly eliminated. No public spectacle, no political scandal, just one death that, they hoped, would change the course of Russian history. On the night of December 30th, 1916, Rasputin arrived at the palace. The conspirators were waiting. According to the most famous version of the story, cakes and wine had been laced with enough poison to kill several men. They expected the evening to end quickly. Instead, they would witness something that would become legendary. The poisoned cakes were placed before Rasputin. The wine was poured. The conspirators watched closely, expecting the poison to take effect within minutes. Rasputin ate. He drank. Then he continued talking as if nothing had happened. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The men exchanged nervous glances. According to the legend, the poison seemed completely ineffective. Prince Yusupov could hardly believe what he was seeing.
Rasputin showed no signs of weakness, no collapse, no agony, no death. Panic began to spread among the conspirators. Their carefully crafted plan appeared to be failing before their eyes. If the poison would not work, they would need another solution. Finally, Yusupov made a decision. He retrieved a revolver, approached Rasputin, and fired. The bullet struck him. Rasputin fell to the floor. The conspirators breathed a sigh of relief. At last, it was over. The mysterious monk lay motionless. The threat had been eliminated. Or so they thought. After some time, Yusupov returned to check the body. As he leaned closer, something unbelievable happened. Rasputin's eyes suddenly opened. According to Yusupov's account, the wounded mystic lunged toward him and attempted to escape. The prince fled in terror.
Rasputin staggered through the snowy courtyard of the palace. Behind him, the conspirators rushed into the freezing night. Gunshots shattered the silence. One bullet struck him, then another. Finally, Rasputin collapsed into the snow. The men believed they had finished the job at last.
Even then, fear remained. The conspirators worried that simply leaving the body behind might expose their crime. They wrapped the corpse and transported it through the icy streets of St. Petersburg. Eventually, they disposed of it in the freezing waters of the Neva River.
The story quickly spread throughout Russia. Newspapers, politicians, and ordinary citizens became fascinated by the details. Poison had failed, bullets had failed. A man had supposedly risen from the dead and fought for his life. Almost overnight, Rasputin transformed from a controversial figure into a legend. But there was one problem. Historians later discovered that many parts of the famous story were difficult to verify. Some evidence suggested the poison may never have been present. Other details conflicted with witness accounts. The more researchers examined the assassination, the more complicated the story became. Was Rasputin truly impossible to kill? Probably not. Many historians believe the legend grew larger with each retelling. Yet the uncertainty only added to his mystique. The line between fact and myth became increasingly blurred. Ironically, the conspirators failed to achieve their ultimate goal. They believed Rasputin's death would save the Russian monarchy. Instead, the empire continued its rapid decline. Only months later, revolution erupted across Russia. The Romanov dynasty, which had ruled for more than 3 centuries, came crashing down. Tsar Nicholas II was forced to abdicate. The royal family lost power. The world that Rasputin had once influenced disappeared almost entirely. Looking back, many historians view his death as one of the final chapters in the story of Imperial Russia. Yet Rasputin's influence did not end with his death. In fact, it may have only begun. Books were written about him, films were produced, conspiracy theories emerged. Some portrayed him as a saint, others as a villain. Few historical figures have inspired such wildly different interpretations. Who was Rasputin, really? Was he a gifted healer who genuinely helped a desperate family? Was he a master manipulator who exploited fear and superstition? Or was he simply a man caught in the middle of one of history's most turbulent eras? The truth is that Rasputin remains difficult to define. Much of what people believe about him comes from rumors, political propaganda, and stories told long after his death. Separating fact from fiction has become nearly impossible. Perhaps that is why his story continues to
fascinate us more than a century later. Rasputin's life reminds us that history is not always clear. Sometimes the most famous people are surrounded by uncertainty. Sometimes legends become more powerful than facts. Even today, historians continue to debate what really happened on that cold winter night in 1916. New theories emerge. Old assumptions are challenged. Yet the mystery remains alive. The man who supposedly refused to die still refuses to disappear from history. From a poor Siberian village to the halls of imperial power, Rasputin's journey was unlike any other. He rose from obscurity to influence an empire. He became feared, admired, hated, and remembered. Few individuals have traveled such an extraordinary path.
Whether he was a healer, a fraud, a visionary, or something in between, one thing is undeniable. Rasputin left a mark on history that has never fully faded. More than 100 years after his death, the world is still asking the same question. Who was the real Grigori Rasputin? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere between the myths and the facts, between the frightened conspirators and the devoted followers, between history and legend. And perhaps that uncertainty is exactly what makes Rasputin one of the most fascinating figures who ever lived. What do you think? Was Rasputin a holy man, a manipulator, or simply a victim of history's greatest myths? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring history's greatest mysteries, forgotten stories, and unbelievable truths, subscribe to Storyverse. Until next time, keep searching beyond the pages of history.